Valara stood at the observation deck of the Imperial flagship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on the view screen. Her scaled fingers tapped nervously against her ceremonial armor as her tail swished behind her, the golden ridges along. Her spine glowed softly in the dim light of the command center. For thousands of cycles, the Xeraxian Empire had ruled the stars. Their species had achieved interstellar travel when humans were still figuring out how to make fire. They had conquered and subjugated hundreds of worlds and dozens of sentient species. They were the undisputed masters of the known galaxy, and yet one rule remained absolute among all their kind: never disturb the humans. It seemed absurd. Valara thought the humans were primitive. They had barely left their own planet. Their technology was laughable compared to Xeraxian achievements. Yet the rule persisted, passed down from empress to empress, since the dawn of their empire. Valara had just been crowned the new empress when High Admiral Talara brought the news that would change everything. The humans had been disturbed. Not by the Xeraxians, of course. No Xeraxian would dare break the ancient taboo. It was the Vex, a newly spacefaring race that had stumbled upon Earth and decided that humans would make excellent slaves. What fools, Valara thought. The massive war room aboard the Imperial flagship buzzed with activity as Valara entered. All conversation stopped as the officers bowed low before her. Valara stood tall, her 7-foot frame imposing even among her own kind. Her scales shimmered with the royal purple hue reserved only for the Imperial bloodline. High Admiral Talara approached, her gold eyes filled with concern. "My Empress, the reports from the human solar system are troubling. The Vex fleet has been completely destroyed." "That was expected," Valara replied. "But there is more, isn't there?" Talara nodded grimly. "The humans, they have reverse-engineered Vex technology. They now have faster-than-light travel, and the weapons that rival our own. And they know about us." Valara felt her heart skip a beat. How they captured a Vex commander before destroying their fleet. Talara explained. "They learned of our existence, our empire, and that we have been watching them for millennia without intervention." Valara hissed softly. The ancient warning suddenly made sense. The humans had been left alone, not out of reverence, but out of fear. What the first Empress had discovered about these creatures long ago must have been terrifying enough to establish the Empire's most sacred law. "So what do they want?" Valara asked, walking to the holographic display of the human solar system. "They have sent out ships." Talara said they appear to be exploring neighboring systems, looking for signs of alien life. "Looking for us, yes, my Empress. And the Vex completely eradicated. The humans showed no mercy." Valara studied the display. Their planet still looked so small and fragile from space, but the data scrolling beside it told a different story. 8 billion humans, thousands of cities, hundreds of nations, a species that had gone from primitive tools to space exploration in a mere blink of cosmic time. "Send a scout ship," Valara ordered. "I want to know exactly what we are dealing with before I make any decisions." High Admiral Talara bowed and left to carry out her orders. Valara remained in the war room alone with her thoughts. The ancient texts spoke of humans as a sleeping giant, something to be avoided at all costs, but they had never explained why. What power could these fragile, short-lived creatures possibly possess that would frighten the mighty Xeraxian Empire? On Earth, in a deep underground facility, Admiral Karen Murphy of the newly formed Earth Defense Force studied the alien technology recovered from the Vex ship. The strange metal seemed to shift and change as if alive. The circuitry defied human understanding, yet her team of scientists had already begun to unlock its secrets. The attack had come without warning. 3 months ago, Vex ships had appeared over major cities and begun abducting humans. They called themselves the Collectors, speaking through strange translation devices. Their leader had proclaimed that humans were perfect specimens for their zoo. That had been their first mistake. When humans realized what was happening, they didn't panic. They organized. They fought back. What had started as a terrifying alien invasion had turned into humanity's greatest triumph. The nations of Earth had united against a common enemy. Technologies that had been theoretical were rapidly developed and deployed. Weapons that had been banned were suddenly authorized. In less than 2 weeks, the Vex fleet had been destroyed, all but one ship, which humans had captured intact along with its commander. Karen looked at the alien prisoner through the observation window. The Vex commander looked almost insectoid with multiple limbs and compound eyes. It chittered nervously whenever humans approached. "What has it told us today?" Samantha Evans, the lead scientist, asked, joining Karen at the window. "That there are others out there," Samantha replied. "Much more powerful than the Vex. A species called the Xeraxians. They rule most of the galaxy and have been aware of Earth for thousands of years." Karen frowned. "Why haven't they contacted us? According to our guest, they have a strict rule never to disturb humans. It seems we're considered dangerous." Karen laughed at the irony. "The Vex, certainly, learned that lesson the hard way." Samantha nodded. "It says the Xeraxians will come now that we've defeated the Vex. They will try to contain us, force us back to Earth, make us forget what we've learned." Karen turned from the window, her expression hardening. "Well, they can try." In the weeks that followed, the Earth Defense Force worked tirelessly to prepare. The Vex technology gave them faster than light travel energy shields and weapons beyond anything humans had previously imagined. But Karen knew it wouldn't be enough, not against an empire that spanned the stars. "We need something they won't expect," she told her team. "We need to show them why their ancestors were afraid of us." That was when Dr. Linda Hoffman, a physicist from MIT, proposed Project Singularity. "It's theoretically possible," Linda explained to a room full of military and scientific leaders. "We can create a localized gravitational collapse, a miniature black hole. It would only exist for seconds before evaporating, but in that time, it could tear apart anything nearby and we could control it." Karen asked. "Not exactly," Linda admitted. "Once initiated, the reaction is self-sustaining. But we could predict its effects, plan around them." It was reckless. It was dangerous. It was exactly the kind of desperate measure that might save humanity. "Begin development immediately," Karen ordered. 3 months later, the scout ship Valara had sent returned to the Imperial fleet. The commander looked shaken as she delivered her report. "My Empress, the humans, they have built a fleet. They have colonized their moon and the 4th planet in their system. They have weapons based on Vex technology." Valara nodded. "That is concerning but not unexpected." The commander hesitated. "There is more. They have detected our observation posts on the edge of their system. They know we are watching them." Valara felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. "What do they want?" "They sent a message," the commander said. "They wish to meet with representatives of our empire. They say they come in peace, but you don't believe them." The commander looked down. "They said if we refuse to meet, they will come find us." For the first time in her rule, Valara felt truly afraid. The sleeping giant was awake, and it was angry. Admiral Karen Murphy stood on the bridge of the EDF Defiance, watching as the final preparations for launch were completed. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, each person aware of the historical significance of this moment. Humanity's first true warship was about to leave Earth orbit. The Defiance was not alone. 11 other vessels of similar design formed a defensive perimeter around Earth. Each ship carried experimental weapons reverse-engineered from Vex technology and something more, Project Singularity. The desperate gamble that might give humanity a fighting chance against the Xeraxians, Commander Michelle Foster approached Karen, her tablet, displaying the latest intelligence. "Our long-range sensors have detected a massive energy signature at the edge of the solar system," she reported. "They're coming." Karen nodded. "How many?" Michelle swallowed hard. "Thousands. At least 8,000 ships that we can identify." Karen felt her stomach tighten, but kept her expression neutral. This is what the Vex commander had warned them about, the full might of the Xeraxian Empire. Their 12 ships against 8,000. The rest of the bridge crew had fallen silent, all eyes turning to Karen. She straightened her uniform and addressed them. "We knew this day would come. She said the day when humanity would face its first true test among the stars. The odds are against us. They have always been against us. But remember this. We are not fighting just for ourselves. We are fighting for every human who will come after us for the right to determine our own destiny among the stars. She looked at each crew member in turn. No species has the right to tell us to go back to our planet, to forget what we have learned, to abandon our future. The Xeraxians may have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, but they have never faced humans before. A small smile crossed her face. Let's show them why their ancestors were afraid of us. The crew cheered their fear, replaced by determination. Karen turned to her communications officer. Send word to all ships. Operation Singularity is now active. All unmanned vessels to forward positions. Everyone else maintain defensive formation around Earth. As the orders were relayed, Karen watched the tactical display. The tiny dots representing human ships seemed insignificant compared to the vast Xeraxian armada approaching. But size wasn't everything, and the Xeraxians were about to learn that the hard way aboard the Imperial flagship Valara stood on the command deck, watching as the human solar system came into view. Her 8,000 ships had arrived in perfect formation, a display of military precision and power that had cowed countless alien civilizations throughout the galaxy. My Empress, the humans have deployed a small defensive fleet, Talara reported. They appear to have only 12 warships. Valara frowned. Only 12. Their response to our ultimatum suggested they would fight. Yet they field such a small force. Perhaps they have hidden weapons, planetary defenses we cannot detect. She studied the tactical display. The 12 human ships had taken up defensive positions around their homeworld. But there were other smaller vessels moving toward the Xeraxian fleet, unmanned probes, perhaps. Hail their commander, Valara ordered. One last chance to avoid bloodshed. The communications officer worked at her console, then nodded to Talara. They are responding. The main view screen activated, showing a human female in a dark uniform. Her expression was calm, determined without a trace of fear. This is Admiral Karen Murphy of the Earth Defense Force. She said, we know you have come to force us back to our world, to make us forget what we have learned. Valara stepped forward, so the human could see her. I am Empress Valara of the Xeraxian Empire, the ruler of 1,000 worlds and the guardian of the galactic peace. Your species has advanced too quickly, acquired technology. You are not ready to control. For the safety of all, we must insist you return to your natural development path. The human admiral smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. We understand your concern, Empress Valara, but we cannot and will not go back. The knowledge we have gained, the technology we now possess, these are part of human development now. Our natural path, as you call it, has changed. Your 12 ships cannot hope to stand against my armada. Valara said, Please, Admiral Murphy, I do not wish to destroy your world. Who said we only have 12 ships? Transmission ended abruptly. Valara turned to her tactical officer. What did she mean by that? Before the officer could respond, alarms blared throughout the command deck. Enemy vessels approaching. High Admiral Talara reported. They were hidden behind your moons. Hundreds of them. Valara watched in shock as the tactical display updated, showing hundreds of small craft emerging from concealed positions throughout the solar system. They were tiny compared to Xeraxian warships, but there were so many of them. Target the largest human vessels, Valara ordered. We will show them the futility of resistance. The mighty guns of the Xeraxian fleet came to bear on the 12 human warships. Energy weapons capable of shattering planets discharged in a blinding display of power. But something unexpected happened. The human ships didn't attempt to evade. Instead, they activated energy shields that seemed to absorb the Xeraxian attack. Impossible, Talara whispered. Those are advanced shield harmonics. They shouldn't have that technology. The smaller human vessels, meanwhile, accelerated toward the Xeraxian fleet. They're on a collision course, Talara reported. Suicide attacks. No. Valara said, remembering the warning of the first Empress. Not suicide. Sacrifice, Admiral. Murphy watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the first wave of unmanned ships approached the Xeraxian fleet. Each carried a Project Singularity device, a weaponized black hole generator. The ships were never meant to return. All that mattered was getting them close enough to the enemy status, she asked. Dr. Linda Hoffman, who had insisted on being present for the deployment of her creation, checked her instruments. First wave approaching optimal range in 30 seconds, she reported Singularity. Devices primed and ready. The bridge was silent as the countdown proceeded. Everyone understood what was at stake. If the devices failed, Earth would be defenseless. If they worked, if the theoretical physics proved correct, the Xeraxians were about to learn a terrible lesson about human ingenuity. 10 seconds, Linda announced. 5, 4, 3, 2. 1 on the tactical display. The lead unmanned ship detonated. Not a conventional explosion, but something far more terrifying. A pinpoint of absolute darkness appeared where the ship had been. A miniature black hole. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then 3 Xeraxian ships closest to the Singularity began to distort, their hulls stretching and twisting as they were pulled toward the gravitational anomaly. In seconds, they were torn apart, their fragments spiraling into the growing darkness. It works. Linda whispered, her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and awe. More unmanned ships detonated, each creating its own singularity, each tearing a hole. In space itself, the Xeraxian fleet began to break formation as ships were caught in the gravitational pull or maneuvered desperately to avoid it. They're trying to retreat, Michelle reported. Karen nodded. Keep the pressure on, deploy second wave aboard. The Imperial flagship. Chaos reigned. Valara watched in horror as her mighty armada was being torn apart not by conventional weapons, but by localized gravitational collapses. Something she had never seen before, never even imagined possible. What are these weapons? She demanded. Talara shook her head in disbelief. They appear to be creating artificial black holes. Unstable, temporary, but devastating. My Empress, we have already lost over 200 ships. 200. Valara couldn't comprehend it. The Xeraxian Empire hadn't lost that many ships in the last 1,000 cycles combined. Return fire, she ordered. Target those small vessels before they can get close. The Xeraxian fleet responded, unleashing its full firepower. Many of the unmanned human ships were destroyed before they could activate their singularity devices, but there were so many of them, and each successful detonation created a new threat, a new region of space that consumed everything it touched. We must withdraw, Talara urged. We are losing too many ships, Valara hissed in frustration. No, we cannot show weakness. We have the numbers, the firepower. They are using tricks, desperation tactics. The deck shuddered violently as a nearby singularity pulled at the Imperial flagship. The artificial gravity fluctuated shields strained to compensate. Status report, Valara demanded. 500 ships lost. Talara replied, her voice grim. And the singularities are expanding, merging. They're creating a cascade effect that will soon encompass this entire region of space. The humans had planned this, Valara realized. They knew they couldn't match Xeraxian firepower. So they changed the battlefield itself. They turned the laws of physics against their enemies. On the main view screen, Admiral Murphy appeared again. Her image flickered with interference, but her voice came through clearly. This is your final warning, Empress Valara. Withdraw your forces now, and we can discuss terms or watch as your fleet is consumed. We have more ships, more singularity devices, and we have other weapons you haven't seen yet. The transmission ended abruptly as another singularity formed dangerously close to the Imperial flagship. Order. A strategic withdrawal. Valara commanded, her voice tight with anger. We will regroup beyond the system and reassess as the Imperial flagship turned away from Earth. Valara watched the tactical display in disbelief. Nearly 1,000 Xeraxian warships had been lost in less than an hour. Centuries of military supremacy, shattered by a species that had barely left their own planet. 10 cycles after the signing of the Earth-Xeraxian Treaty, the galaxy had transformed in ways few could have predicted. Humanity, true to its nature, had expanded rapidly, establishing colonies on dozens of worlds. Their ships now traveled freely through sectors that had once been exclusively Xeraxian territory. Their traders, scientists, and diplomats could be found throughout the Empire. Valara stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed diplomatic vessel, Unity, a joint project between human and Xeraxian engineers. It represented the pinnacle of cooperation between their species. Larger than any previous Imperial ship, it incorporated both Xeraxian power systems and human innovations in propulsion and artificial gravity. The ship was currently in orbit around a planet the humans called New Hope, the first world beyond their solar system to be fully colonized by humans. From space, it looked remarkably like Earth, though its continents had different shapes. Its blue oceans, white clouds, and green landmasses spoke of a successful terraforming project. High Admiral Talara joined Valara at the viewport. "They have accomplished in 10 cycles what would have taken us 100, she observed. Valara nodded. "They move quickly. That is their strength and their weakness." The human settlement below was a testament to human determination. A city of over 1 million inhabitants had sprung from nothing. Advanced infrastructure, transportation systems, and defensive installations had been constructed with remarkable speed. Human ingenuity combined with Xeraxian technical assistance had accelerated the colonization process beyond all expectations. But not all was peaceful in this new galactic order. The rapid expansion of humanity had created tensions. Territorial disputes had arisen. Cultural misunderstandings had led to incidents. Some Xeraxian traditionalists still viewed humans as upstarts unworthy of their place in the Empire. Some humans remained deeply suspicious of Xeraxian intentions, remembering the initial threat to force them back to Earth. Ambassador Amy Foster, the human diplomatic representative to the Imperial Court, approached Valara and Talara. Her red hair was styled in the current Xeraxian fashion, an attempt at cultural bridge building that Valara appreciated. "Empress Valara, Admiral Talara," she said, bowing slightly. "The governor will receive us in 1 hour. She hopes you will join her for the dedication ceremony." Valara inclined her head. "We would be honored." Ambassador Amy smiled. "This colony represents everything we hoped for when we signed the treaty: peaceful expansion, cooperation, mutual respect, and increased trade opportunities." Talara added pragmatically. Amy laughed. "The Admiral always sees the practical side." They were interrupted by a young Xeraxian officer who approached with obvious urgency. "My Empress," she said, bowing deeply. "We have received an emergency transmission from the Imperial capital." Valara frowned. "What has happened?" The officer glanced at Amy, then back to Valara. "High Counselor Drax has called for an emergency session of the Council. He claims to have evidence that the humans have violated the treaty." Amy's expression hardened. "What evidence?" The officer hesitated, then continued. "They claim humans have established military bases beyond the agreed boundaries, that they are developing weapons prohibited by the treaty. Specifically, weapons based on the singularity technology. Is this true?" Valara asked. Turning to Amy, the ambassador shook her head. "No, Empress. We have honored every provision of the treaty. Our military deployments are all within authorized zones. Our research, while advanced, remains within agreed parameters." Valara studied Amy's face, looking for signs of deception. She had learned to read human expressions over the years, but Amy's demeanor showed only concern and perhaps a touch of anger at the accusation. "We should return to the capital," Talara suggested. "This matter must be addressed directly." Valara nodded. "Alert the governor that we must postpone our visit. Tell her I apologize for the inconvenience, but Imperial matters require my immediate attention." As they returned to the Unity's command deck, Valara's mind raced. High Counselor Drax had opposed the treaty from the beginning. He had been the strongest voice for military action against Earth. He and his faction had spent cycles looking for any excuse to invalidate the agreement to return to the old ways. But would he go so far as to fabricate evidence? Or had the humans truly violated the treaty? Valara had come to respect them, even trust certain individuals like Karen Murphy and Amy Foster. But humanity was diverse, complex. Its governments, corporations, and individual actors did not always move in concert. The Unity entered faster than light travel. the stars stretching into streaks of light as the ship accelerated to speeds that would have been impossible without human innovations to Xeraxian drive systems. In the Imperial Conference Room, Amy Foster was joined by several human representatives, including Admiral Karen Murphy, now the Supreme Commander of the Earth Defense Force, and Dr. Linda Hoffman, who headed the joint Human-Xeraxian Scientific Exchange across. From them sat High Counselor Drax, flanked by his supporters. His red scales seemed to pulse with barely contained anger as he glared at the human's empress. Valara took her seat at the head of the table with Talara at her side. "Let us address these serious allegations directly," she said. "High Counselor Drax, you claim to have evidence of treaty violations. Present it now." Drax activated a holographic display showing what appeared to be a human military installation. "Our intelligence agents discovered this facility in the Procyon system." He said, "A system well beyond the boundaries established by the treaty." The display shifted, showing schematics of what looked like weapons. "They are developing improved versions of their singularity weapons. The same weapons they used against our fleet." Karen Murphy leaned forward, studying the images. "Those are not our installations," she said firmly. "That is not human architecture or design." Drax sneered. "Of course you would deny it." Valara raised her hand for silence. "Let Admiral Murphy finish." Karen pointed to several features in the hologram. "The proportions are wrong for human construction. The power systems are inconsistent with our technology, and the so-called singularity weapons bear only a superficial resemblance to our designs." "This is a fabrication." Dr. Hoffman nodded in agreement. "The physics are all wrong. The equations visible on those schematics would not create a functional singularity. They're nonsensical." Drax slammed his fist on the table. "You expect us to believe your denials when our agents risked their lives to obtain this information." Amy Foster spoke calmly. "We have nothing to hide. We propose a joint inspection team. Visit this location together and see for yourselves that these are not human facilities." Valara considered the proposal. It seemed reasonable. If the humans were guilty, would they so readily agree to inspection? "There is no time for such measures," Drax insisted. "We must act now before they become too powerful, must enforce the treaty with military action." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Is that what this is about?" "Counselor, a pretext for war." The tension in the room was palpable. Generations of distrust threatened to overwhelm a decade of progress Valara could see, the Empire splintering before her eyes, the peace she had worked so hard to maintain dissolving. Then a Xeraxian communications officer burst into the room. "My Empress," she gasped, forgetting protocol in her urgency. "We have detected unusual activity in the Procyon system. Multiple ships of unknown design have appeared. They are attacking our observation posts." Drax looked triumphant. "You see the humans strike." Karen stood up. "Those are not our ships." She insisted. "I have no forces deployed anywhere near Procyon." The officer activated the main display showing the ships in question. They were unlike any vessel Valara had seen before. Not Xeraxian, not human. Their design was organic, almost insectoid. All eyes turned to Drax, who suddenly looked uncomfortable. "This is some trick," he blustered. Talara studied the display enhancement on the lead vessel, she ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing details that made Valara hiss in surprise. The markings were familiar, ancient. They belonged to a species the Xeraxians had encountered only in historical records. "The Harvesti," she whispered, "a species believed extinct for 5,000 cycles, known for their practice of stripping planets of all resources, including sentient life." But how, Talara asked. "They were defeated. Their world sterilized, perhaps not all of them," Valara said. "And now they return, finding our empire distracted by internal politics. Our attention focused on the humans, rather than ancient threats." She turned to Drax. "You have been deceived, Counselor. These fabrications, the evidence you presented, it was designed to divide us, to weaken us before their real attack." Drax seemed genuinely shocked. "I did not. No, I would never. But you were all too willing to believe the worst of the humans," Valara said, "to push for conflict. And someone took advantage of that." Karen Murphy had been studying the tactical display. "The Harvesti ships, if that's what they truly were, We're advancing through the Procyon system unopposed. Our nearest forces could be there. In 12 hours, she said. How many ships can the Empire deploy? Talara checked her datapad. The 7th Fleet is closest, but they would take at least 18 hours to mobilize and reach. Procyon Karen nodded decisively. Then we will go first. Hold the line until your ships arrive. Valara was surprised by the offer. You would defend Xeraxian territory. Of course, Karen replied. The treaty works both ways. We are allies, and these Harvesti, whoever they are, threaten us all. The Imperial Council chamber fell silent as Empress Valara entered. The 12 High Counselors representing the major sectors of the Xeraxian Empire rose and bowed. Their scales glittered in various colors, denoting their clan affiliations, but all wore the silver collar of Imperial service. Valara took her seat on the raised throne and surveyed the room. These were the most powerful Xeraxians in the galaxy outside of her own royal line. We face an unprecedented situation. She began. The humans have advanced beyond their containment. They possess technology they should not have access to for at least another 1,000 cycles, and they know of our existence. Murmurs spread through the council chamber. High Counselor Nixara, the oldest among them, spoke first. My Empress, what exactly do these humans want? They demand a meeting, Valara replied. They wish to establish diplomatic relations with our empire. This is absurd. High Counselor Drax snorted, his red scales flashing with anger. They are barely more than primitives. They should be honored that we have allowed them to exist unmolested for so long. High Admiral Talara, who stood at Valara's side, stepped forward. Have you forgotten the ancient warnings, Counselor? The first Empress herself established the law never to disturb the humans. She must have had good reason. Drax waved a dismissive hand. Those warnings are from a time long past. Our empire is vastly more powerful now. We could crush these humans if necessary. Perhaps, Valara said, carefully. But I would remind you all that the Vex thought the same. They attacked Earth with a fleet of 100 ships. Not one survived. The council fell silent again. What do you propose? My Empress. High Counselor Nixara asked. We have two options. Valara said, send a diplomatic envoy as they request and risk exposing our empire further to their influence, or demonstrate our power, force them back to their world, and ensure they never leave again. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some counselors argued for diplomacy, others for immediate military action. Valara listened carefully, weighing each argument against her own instincts. After hours of deliberation, she raised her hand for silence. The Empire has stood for 10,000 cycles because we have been careful, we have been patient, we have been wise. She said, I will not risk our future on either blind aggression or naive trust. We will send a message to the humans. Make it clear that they must return to their planet, abandon their new technology, and we will continue to leave them in peace. And if they refuse, High Admiral Talara asked, then we will show them why the Xeraxian Empire rules the stars. Valara replied. On Earth, Admiral Karen Murphy stood in the control room of the newly completed orbital shipyard. The massive structure hung in space above Earth, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. In the 3 months since the Vex attack, humanity had achieved what might have taken decades under normal circumstances. First true human warship, the EDF Defiance, floated in the construction bay. Its sleek hull incorporated both human design and reverse-engineered Vex technology. Karen watched with pride as work crews made final adjustments to the ship systems. How soon until it's ready, she asked. Commander Michelle Foster consulted her tablet. 2 days for the Defiance. The other 11 ships in the first wave will be ready within the week. Karen nodded in Project Singularity. Michelle grimaced. Still highly experimental. The physics team says they can make it work, but the delivery system is problematic. We can't just put a black hole generator on a missile. That's exactly what we're going to do. Karen replied. We need options, Michelle. Especially if these Xeraxians turn out to be as powerful as the Vex commander claims. A young lieutenant approached them, interrupting their conversation. Admiral, we just received a transmission. It's not from Earth. Karen and Michelle exchanged glances. Put it on screen. Karen ordered the UI. Main display flickered and then showed an alien face. The creature resembled a humanoid reptile with purple scales and golden eyes. It wore what appeared to be ceremonial armor and spoke in a measured, careful tone. Humans of Earth, I am High Admiral Talara of the Xeraxian Empire. We have observed your species for many thousands of years. We have allowed you to develop unmolested, following our ancient law of non-interference. The alien paused. The Vex broke this law. They paid the price for their transgression. However, their actions have created a situation that must be addressed. You have acquired technology beyond your development stage. You have learned of the wider galactic community before you were ready. By order of Empress Valara, you are instructed to return to your planet, abandon your new technology, and remain within your solar system. We will continue to ensure no other species interferes with your natural development. Karen felt anger rising within her but kept her expression neutral as the message continued. You have 3 of your Earth days to comply. Failure to do so will be considered an act of aggression against the Xeraxian Empire. The consequences would be severe. The transmission ended gracious of them, Michelle said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Karen turned to her communications officer. Get me a secure line to all EDF commanders and the Security Council. We need to respond. Within an hour, Karen sat at the head of a conference table surrounded by military leaders and government officials from around the world. The mood was tense as they discussed the Xeraxian ultimatum. They want us to give up everything we've achieved. General Helen Boyd said, her eyes flashing with anger. Go back to being ignorant of the universe around us. Secretary Laura Vasquez nodded. It's clear they see us as children to be managed, not equals to be respected. And their threat, Karen asked, looking around the table. What do we make of that, Dr. Linda Hoffman, the physicist behind Project Singularity, spoke up. According to the Vex commander, the Xeraxians have millions of ships spread across thousands of systems. Their technology is centuries beyond even what we acquired from the Vex. If they decide to attack, we cannot win, not conventionally, so we surrender. Secretary Vasquez asked. Karen shook her head. No, we negotiate, but from a position of strength. We accelerate the deployment of the fleet. We finish Project Singularity. And we show these Xeraxians that humans are not to be underestimated. The meeting concluded with a unanimous decision to reject the Xeraxian demands. Instead, they would offer to meet established diplomatic relations and insist on being treated as equals. When the human response reached the Imperial flagship, Valara watched it with growing concern. The human female, who identified herself as Admiral Karen Murphy of the Earth Defense Force, stood tall and spoke with unwavering confidence. High Admiral Talara and Empress Valara of the Xeraxian Empire, we appreciate your long-standing policy of non-interference. However, circumstances have changed. The people of Earth now know we are not alone in the universe. We have developed the technology to travel beyond our solar system, and we intend to do so. The human paused, her expression hardening slightly. We reject your demand to return to our planet and abandon our technological progress. Instead, we propose a diplomatic meeting between our representatives to establish peaceful relations between humanity and the Xeraxian Empire. We come with open hands, but we will not be forced back into isolation, Valara hissed softly as the message ended. They refuse. High Admiral Talara nodded, her expression grim. They do not understand the position they are in. They think they can negotiate as equals. Or perhaps Valara thought they understand something. We do not. Assemble the fleet, Valara ordered. We will give these humans their answer. Across Xeraxian space warships began to gather, the might of the Empire converging on a single point A. Force not assembled in thousands of cycles. 8,000 warships, each capable of destroying an entire planet. Enough firepower to reduce Earth to ash many times over, as the Imperial Armada prepared to depart. Valara stood alone in her private chamber. A shrine to the First Empress stood in one corner, an ancient artifact passed down through generations. She approached it slowly, feeling drawn to the small data crystal that sat at its center. The crystal had never been activated. None had dared to view its contents. The first Empress had left strict instructions that it was to be used only if the humans ever became a true threat to the Empire. Was that moment now? Valara wondered, her scaled fingers closed around the crystal. With a deep breath, she placed it in the reader and activated it. A hologram appeared, the image of the first Empress, Zalara. She looked much like Valara, though her scales showed signs of battle damage. If you are viewing this message, then the humans have awakened, the first Empress said. Her voice echoed with authority despite the millennia that had passed since the recording was made. I established the law never to disturb the humans after witnessing their potential firsthand. They may seem primitive, weak even, but do not be deceived. The hologram shifted, showing images that made Valara gasp. Scenes of destruction. Xeraxian ships torn apart. Human warriors fighting with impossible ferocity. We discovered Earth by accident? The first Empress continued. We thought, as you likely do now, that we could easily conquer them, take their world for our own. They were primitive, barely beginning to build civilizations. But when we attacked, something happened. Something I still do not fully understand. The first Empress leaned closer to the recording device they adapted. With terrifying speed, they turned our own weapons against us. They sacrificed themselves by the thousands without hesitation. They fought not as individuals but as a single entity driven by collective will. 3 cycles had passed since the Battle of Earth, as it was now called, throughout the Xeraxian Empire. 3 cycles of upheaval, uncertainty, and fear. The news had spread quickly despite efforts to contain it. The mighty Imperial fleet had been defeated, not by a rival empire or an ancient power, but by humans, a species most Xeraxians had never even heard of before. Valara stood in the Imperial Garden, one of the few places she could find solitude these days. The artificially maintained ecosystem contained plants from hundreds of worlds carefully arranged to create a harmonious whole. Much like the Empire itself had once been, High Admiral Talara approached, walking slowly along the crystal path that wound through exotic foliage. My Empress, she said, bowing slightly. The human delegation has arrived. Valara nodded. We should not keep them waiting. The 2 Xeraxians made their way to the grand reception hall, where the Empire traditionally welcomed foreign dignitaries. Though in 10,000 cycles no foreign power had ever been received as equals. This would be the first. The humans had been busy in the 3 cycles since their victory. Their 12 warships had become 100. They had established colonies on 2 planets in their home system and sent expeditionary forces to nearby stars. They had also transmitted messages to every corner of the galaxy, announcing their presence and their intention to establish diplomatic relations with all sentient species. The Xeraxian Empire had been forced to adapt. The Imperial Council had been in constant session debating how to respond. Some counselors still advocated for war, arguing that the Empire should commit its full might to crushing the human threat. Others, including Talara, recommended caution, diplomacy, and perhaps even alliance. Valara had made her decision after much reflection. The first Empress had been wrong about one thing. The humans had indeed tempered their warrior nature with wisdom. They had not pursued the retreating Xeraxian fleet. They had not attacked Xeraxian worlds. They had offered peace even in victory. The grand reception hall fell silent as Valara entered. The Imperial court, arranged on either side of the central aisle, bowed low as she passed. Valara took her seat on the crystal throne and nodded to Talara. Bring in the humans, she ordered. The massive doors at the far end of the hall swung open. 3 humans entered, 2 females and 1 male. They wore what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire, simple yet elegant. They walked with confidence, their heads held high, showing neither fear nor arrogance as they approached the throne. Valara studied them closely. These creatures that had defeated her fleet. They looked so fragile, their soft skin lacking the protection of scales, their small frames without the impressive stature of Xeraxians. Yet there was something in their eyes, a determination, a curiosity, an adaptability that Valara was beginning to understand. The lead human stepped forward and bowed slightly. Admiral Karen Murphy of Earth, she said, I bring greetings from humanity to the Xeraxian Empire. Valara inclined her head. I am Empress Valara, ruler of the Xeraxian Empire, guardian of the galactic peace. Welcome to Xerax. Prime Admiral Karen introduced her companions. This is Dr. Linda Hoffman, our chief scientific advisor, and Ambassador Daniel Wright, our diplomatic representative. Valara noticed that the human called Linda was studying the hall with intense interest, her eyes moving from one architectural feature to another, taking in every detail. The male Daniel stood perfectly still, his expression carefully neutral. A practiced diplomat. We have much to discuss. Valara said, indeed. Karen agreed. The future of our species and our place in the galaxy. Valara rose from her throne. Let us speak in the council chamber where we can talk as equals. The imperial court murmured in surprise. Never had an empress addressed foreign visitors as equals, but none dared object. As Valara led the humans from the grand hall to the smaller, more intimate council chamber, once seated around the circular table with only Talara present as witness, the real negotiations began. Let me speak plainly, Valara said. We underestimated your species. We believed that superior numbers and technology would be enough to force your compliance. We were wrong. Karen nodded. We bear no ill will for your actions, Empress. You were following a tradition established long ago. But that tradition must now change. The galaxy is large enough for both our peoples to exist as equals. And what exactly do you propose? Ambassador Wright asked, leaning forward. We seek recognition of human sovereignty, not just over Earth, but over our entire solar system and any worlds we colonize. We seek technological exchange, scientific cooperation, and fair trade agreements. And in return, Linda added, we offer our own unique perspective, our scientific innovations, our creativity. Valara considered their words. You offer much, but there is one question I must ask. Why did you not pursue our fleet after your victory? Why offer peace when you could have pressed your advantage? Karen smiled gently. That is not our way, Empress. We fought to defend ourselves, to establish our right to exist among the stars, not to conquer or subjugate. The weapon we used. She glanced at Linda was a desperate measure. We do not wish to repeat it. You could have destroyed our entire fleet. Valara pressed. We could have, Karen acknowledged. But what would that accomplish? Besides proving that we are exactly what you feared. Linda spoke up, her voice soft but intense. Our history is filled with war, Empress. We have fought ourselves far more than any outside enemy. We know the cost of conflict, the price of hatred. And we have learned that peace, prosperity, cooperation. These are better paths. Valara felt something she had not expected, respect for these humans. They had the power to destroy yet chose restraint. They had been wronged yet offered friendship. It was not the Xeraxian way. But perhaps that was why they were so dangerous and so valuable. I believe we can reach an agreement, Valara said, looking at each human in turn. One that recognizes your independence, ensures peace between our peoples, and perhaps in time leads to something more. An alliance. The negotiations continued for days, each point carefully debated, each concession measured. The humans proved to be skilled diplomats, firm in their core demands, flexible in details. Valara found herself impressed by their ability to understand complex galactic politics, despite their isolation. While the diplomats worked, scientists from both species began cautious exchanges. Linda Hoffman spent hours with Xeraxian researchers. Her questions were insightful, often revealing perspectives the Xeraxians had never considered. Her explanations of human science, particularly their understanding of singularities and quantum mechanics, showed an intuitive grasp that both impressed and alarmed her hosts. Karen, meanwhile, toured the imperial capital with Talara as her guide. The human admiral studied Xeraxian military installations, shipyards, and defense systems with professional interest. Do you find our defenses adequate, Admiral? Talara asked as they observed a fleet exercise. Karen smiled. For now, the implied threat was not lost on Talara, but neither was the humor. They had reached a point where such jokes were possible, if not entirely comfortable. Back on Earth, news of the negotiations was met with cautious optimism. The governments of Earth had united more firmly in the face of alien contact, forming the United Earth Council. Even as diplomatic efforts proceeded, the production of warships continued. The deployment of defense systems accelerated. Humanity was taking no chances. Preparations for large-scale colonization began as well. Ships filled with settlers, scientists, and engineers were readied for departure to nearby star systems. Each would carry the seeds of human civilization and the determination to spread throughout the galaxy. In the Xeraxian Empire, reactions were mixed. Many traditionalists were outraged by the Empress treating humans as equals. Others, particularly younger Xeraxians, were fascinated by humanity. The few human cultural transmissions permitted by Imperial censors were studied intensely. Human music, art, literature all revealed a creativity that many Xeraxians found compelling. Underground movements began to form advocating for greater contact with humans, for reform of imperial structures, for a new galactic order. Some even whispered of revolution, though such talk was quickly suppressed. On the final day of negotiations, Valara and Karen met privately in the Imperial Garden, away from advisors, diplomats, and recorders. "Your people adapt quickly," Valara observed. 3 cycles ago, you had never left your solar system. Now you prepare to spread across the stars. "It is our nature," Karen replied. "We explore. We adapt. We overcome. And we never stop asking questions. That is what makes you dangerous," Valara said. "And valuable. The treaty will be signed tomorrow. Your independence recognized. Your expansion permitted within agreed boundaries." Karen nodded. "That is all we asked," Valara turned to face the human directly. "But I must know, when you first defeated the Vex, when you learned of our existence, what was your plan? If we had not responded to your message, if we had ignored you." Karen met the Empress. Gaze for a moment, she considered. Diplomacy, then decided on honesty. "We would have come looking for you. We would have kept expanding, exploring until we found you. And then we would have done exactly what we did. We would have offered peace first, but we would have been prepared for war." And now Valara asked, "What are your true intentions for the future?" Karen smiled. "We wish to learn, to grow, to understand this universe we share, to become part of the galactic community as equals. Nothing more, but nothing less." Valara added, "Nothing less," Karen agreed.